The stories behind the most surreal pictures throughout history. A B-25 bomber plane that crashed into the Empire State Building in 1945. It sounds frightening to think of the Empire State Building on fire, but that is what happened in 1945. A bomber plane, more specifically a B-25, Mitchell, crashed into the iconic building. This was not an act by state enemies, but was a mistake by the US Air Force. The lieutenant piloting the plane became disoriented because of the fog and crashed between the 78th and 80th floor. One engine of the plane went down an elevator shaft. Another landed in a penthouse art studio in another building. The tragic event led to the death of 14 people. The ensuing fire took 40 minutes to control and was a remarkable feat considering how high it was. People walk across rows of chairs. During the 1910 Great Flood of Paris. The 1910 Great Floods of Paris happened in late January, when the water level in the Seine River reached 8.62 meters over the normal limit. Winter rains carried by the tributaries fed into the Seine. Consequently, the sewers overflowed. There had been warning signs. It had rained more than usual, and the river was flowing faster, carrying debris. The government had to adapt quickly. They built several wooden walkways. But citizens also came up with their own solutions, such as riding around in boats or playing chairs in a line as a makeshift bridge, like shown above. The flood lasted 2 months and it cost $1.5 billion in damages, in today's money. Pro wrestler Ric Flair with a young Dwayne Johnson in 1985. Dwayne Johnson might be one of the biggest movie stars right now and the highest paid in the world. But in this picture, he is a 12-year-old meeting Ric Flair. Flair recalls meeting the Black Adam star and said he was conflicted. Johnson, whose famous father was a wrestler, was confused about whether to follow in his footsteps. As history shows, he did and became The Rock. He went on to play a huge role in the success of WWE, especially in the late 90s and early undones. His wrestling career has been astounding. He has been a 10-time world champion and has been featured in some of the most watched episodes by WWE. Titanic in dry dock in 1912 and the same dock in 2015. The 1997 film by James Cameron immortalized the tragedy of the ill-fated Titanic. The Titanic was a British passenger liner and was built to be a luxury experience. The cruise ship had a gymnasium, swimming pool, libraries, restaurants and grand cabins. When the ship sank, it is said 1/500 of the estimated 2,224 passengers on board died. Before its voyage, the Titanic was docked in Belfast at the Thompson Graving Dock. The dock was built specifically to host the White Liners Cruises, the company which owned the Titanic. Today, the dockyard has other uses. Some of it has been converted into a museum, while the other part is a bistro. Knife grinders, lying face, down at work to save their backs from being hunched over. All day, France in the 1900s, in cold and clammy workshops, knife grinders bent over all day sharpening knives. All that bending was not good for their backs. It's why they were advised by doctors to lay on their stomachs. This would help ease pressure on their sore back. Some bought their dogs to keep them company. Others wanted them to warm their legs in the cold workshops. Then came the advent of equipment that allowed the craftsman to work while lying on his stomach. There would no longer be any strain on their backs. Nowadays, skilled folks can sharpen their cutlery at home with a whetstone with the right safety measures. An eerie photo of the construction of the Statue of Liberty in France in 1884. The Statue of Liberty has long been an American symbol representing democracy and freedom. The statue was a gift from France to the United States. From the mind of designer Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, Lady Liberty's ace was allegedly modeled after his own mother. He asked his friend Gustave Eiffel to do the metal framework while he worked on the copper overlaying on top. If the name Eiffel makes one think of the eponymous tower in Paris, then that is the correct connection to make. Eiffel was the architect responsible for the Eiffel Tower. The statue was built in France and sent over in crates to the United States. In America, it was assembled on Bedloe's Island, now named Liberty Island. Cesar Romero, doing his makeup as the Joker on the set of the TV series Batman in 1967. Cesar Romero was known for playing Latin lovers, but he took on a new image when he played the Joker in Batman. The character had never been brought to life on screen before then. Since he was an iconic villain in the comics, it needed to be done right. And Romero did a wonderful job with his whimsical take on Bruce Wayne's arch-nemesis. For the character's get-up, he refused to shave his mustache. Hence, white face paint needed to be smeared on top of it. Romero explained that he went with green hair because it was how the Joker had been drawn in one of the earliest comics, the stories behind the most surreal pictures throughout history.